This video is about the midpoint formula. What's the midpoint formula? It is a formula for the midpoint of two numbers. What's the midpoint of two points? So let's say that I have the xy plane and I have 2 points. Let's call this point A, and let's say I have another point, say here, which is B. And I look at the line segment from A to B. The midpoint is the point that's in the middle of the line segment. So for instance, it would be this point. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to split up the line segment so that this length, the first piece, and the length of the second piece are the same. So C, this point C that makes that happen is called the midpoint of the line segment AB. So how do we figure out the coordinates of C if you know the coordinates of A and B? Well, let's just look at an example to get an idea of what might happen. So let's say that you have the point, I don't know, 1, 1, and 3, so here's 2, 2, 3, 4. And let's say that you have the point 3, 4. So the first point is 1, 1, the second point is 3, 4. And I'm trying to find, so here's the line segment. Okay. And I'm trying to find the point that's right in the middle of the line segment that will split the line segment into 2 equal pieces. Well, what do you think, how do you think I can find the point in the middle? We have this triangle like this, and I want the point that's just sort of in the middle, and what will happen is that if I make a triangle like this, okay, this distance here should be half of the distance of the horizontal in the big triangle. So the x-coordinate should be the average of the coordinates the endpoints. That kind of makes sense because we want to go halfway along x and halfway along y. So to get from 1, 1 to 3, 4, how many units do we go to the right? We go 2 units to the right, right? So if you want to go halfway, how many units would you go to the right? You would go 1 because 1 is half of 2. And similarly, the y-coordinate of the midpoint should be the average of the y-coordinates of the endpoints. Because you want to go halfway in the y direction. So for instance, if you go look at this picture, okay, if you start at 1, 1 and go to 3, 4, your y-coordinate changed from 1 to 4. So how much was the change in y? It was 3, because 4 minus 1 is 3. So halfway is 3 over 2. So you should add 3 over 2 to 1, and then that will give you 5 over 2. So the midpoint should be 2, 5 over 2. Let's draw the triangle again. Let's draw let's draw the triangle, the two small triangles that you make, like this. So we had 1, 1, and then the triangle that goes up to 2, 5 over 2, and then a triangle that goes from 2, 5 over 2 to 3, 4. 3, yeah, 3, 4. These two triangles are these two triangles. This triangle and that triangle. Let's check that 2, 5 over 2 really is the midpoint. Well, we see that on the left triangle, the change in x is 1, and the change in y is 5 over 2 minus 1. That's 2.5 minus 1, that's 1.5, so that's 3 over 2. And this is a right triangle. And for the other triangle, we also have a right triangle, and the change in x is 3 minus 2, which is 1, and then the change in y is 4 minus 5 over 2, that's 8 minus 5, all over 2, that's 3 over 2. So we have two triangles that are right triangles, and the two legs are the same length. That means that the hypotenuses of these triangles are equal. So this length and that length are the same length. And that proves, so 2, 5 over 2 is, in fact, the midpoint. Okay? Are we okay on what we did? Let's just summarize what we did. So the question is, when you have two points, okay, what's the point in the middle of the line segment? And we kind of guessed, our intuition suggests that what you should do is you should take the change in x and then take half of that and then add that to one of the endpoints, the left endpoint, and then take the change in y and then add half of that to the y coordinate of the left endpoint. And that would tell you the midpoint. And that's the same as taking the average of the x coordinates and taking the average of the y coordinates. So if you look at this example, where you had 1, 1, and 3, 4, if you take 1 plus 3 over 2, you get 2. And then if you add the y coordinates, 1 plus 4, and divide by 2, you get 5 halves. Right? So that suggests that the x and y coordinates are 2 and 5 halves. And we confirmed that this is actually correct by looking at those two triangles you get, and saying that, oh, well, if you make it so that that happens, then you get these two triangles where the two sides are the same, and you have two right triangles. Therefore, since they're congruent triangles, the hypotenuse is the same. That's how you know for sure that this big hypotenuse really does get split up into two equal pieces. So let's just write down the formula then. So if you're given A, which is x1, y1, and B, which is x2, y2, are points, if A and B are points, okay, then the midpoint of the line segment AB is the point which is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. So that's called the midpoint formula. And intuitively, again, you're just taking the average of the x-coordinates. So this x-coordinate is the average of the x-coordinates of A and B. The y-coordinate of the midpoint is the average of the y-coordinates of A and B. Okay, so example. Find the coordinates of the midpoint of AB with endpoints A, which is negative 5, 4, and B, which is 1, negative 2. Well, what you do is you take your x-coordinates, and then you take your y-coordinates, and then you take the x-coordinates, you add them, divide by 2, and then take the y-coordinates, add them, and divide by 2. So the midpoint is going to be negative 5 plus 1 over 2, comma 4 plus negative 2 over 2, and that's negative 4 over 2 is negative 2, 4 minus 2 is negative 2, that divided by 2 is negative 1. So that, these are the coordinates of the midpoint, negative 2, comma 1. Let's draw a picture. By the way, when it says what are the coordinates, you're supposed to give an ordered pair. So it's just parentheses, negative 2, comma, negative 1. It's not, when they say find the coordinates, they don't mean negative 2 and negative 1. Okay, it's just parentheses, negative 2, comma, negative 1. That's the answer. So negative 5, comma 4, let's just draw a picture just to illustrate. So here's negative 5, say, and here's 4, so that's A. And then B is 1, comma, maybe 1 is here, and then negative 2 is maybe here. So this would be B. So you have this line segment AB. And then C is negative 2, comma, negative 1. Oop, did I draw it wrong? Oh, sorry, this should be positive 1, shouldn't it? Because it's 4 minus 2 is 2, and then 2 over 2 is 1. Okay, yeah. So negative 2, comma 1. Okay, this picture is not very accurate, but negative 2, comma 1, maybe it's over there. Maybe it's this point. And if I drew the picture very accurately, then the length of AC would be equal to the length of CB. Okay. Let's do one more example, which is slightly different. So we're given the midpoint of AB is negative 3 halves, negative 5 halves, and A is at negative 4, negative 4. What is, find the coordinates of B. Well, let's call the coordinates of B x1, y1. Okay. We're given that the midpoint is negative 3 over 2, negative 5 over 2. So that means that if you take the x-coordinates of A and B, you add them and divide by 2, you get negative 3 over 2. If you take the y-coordinates of A and B, add them and divide by 2, you get negative 5 over 2. So x1 plus negative 4 over 2 is equal to negative 3 over 2. And y1 plus negative 4 over 2 is equal to negative 5 over 2. That's from the midpoint formula. And we can now solve for x1 and y1. So this first equation tells us that x1 minus 4, let's multiply by 2 on both sides, is negative 3 over 2 times 2. So that gives me x1 minus 4 is equal to negative 3. Now I can add 4 to both sides and get negative 3 plus 4, which is 1. Then for y1, I do exactly the same thing. I multiply both sides by 2, so I get y1 minus 4 is equal to negative 5 over 2 times 2. That's y1 minus 4 is equal to negative 5. Add 4 to both sides. I get negative 5 plus 4, which is negative 1. So the coordinates of B is 1, negative 1. Okay, so that's the midpoint formula. So let's just review what we did. Okay, we wanted to find the point that will split up a line segment into 2 equal pieces. And we saw that we can do that by averaging the x-coordinates and then averaging the y-coordinates. And those 2 numbers are the coordinates of the midpoint. And we gave an example to illustrate why that's true. How when you do that, you end up getting these two triangles that have the same sides, the 2 short sides are the same, and they're both right triangles, so the hypotenuses must be the same. That's how you know that what you get is actually the midpoint. It actually does split the segment into 2 equal pieces. So then we just wrote down the formula. We did some examples of applying the formula. As an extra challenge, one question would be, what's the point that's a third of the way from A to B? Or what's the point that's a quarter of the way from A to B? So in this case, we did, what's the point that's halfway between A and B? But you can think about, well, what would be the point that's 2/3 of the way from A to B, and so on. So that's something extra that you can think about.